ایک منٹ.
اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان اللعین الرجیم بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم یاسین والقرآن الحکیم انک لمن المرسلین علی صراط مستقیم تنزیل العزیز الرحیم لتنذر قوما ما انذر آباؤہم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على اکثرهم فهم لا یؤمنون انا جعلنا فی اعناقهم اغلالا فهي الى الاذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين ايديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فاغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم انذرتهم ام لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون انما تنذر من اتبع ذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشر بمغفرة واجر كريم انا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاء المرسلون إذ أرسلنا عليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يريد الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كما أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة وحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملت أيديهم فلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أن حملنا ذرية في فلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا متاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم انفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا ونطعم من لو شاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم أزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم أن لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد ضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعين فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانة فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمر نكس في الخلق فلا يعقلون وما علمناه شعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم منها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحيي الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم إن الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون سورة بعد الفاتحة.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. कोई ग़ैबत में बैठा खून के आंसू बहाता है, कोई ग़ैबत में बैठा खून के आंसू बहाता है। उसे ज़ैनब का जब बाजार जाना याद आता है, कोई ग़ैबत में बैठा खून के आंसू बहाता है। कोई गमख्वार غیبت میں میسر ہی نہیں اس کو، کوئی غم خوار غیبت میں میسر ہی نہیں اس کو، سو تنہائی میں ہر نوحہ وہ خود کو ہی سناتا ہے، کوئی غیبت میں بیٹھا خون کے آنسو بہاتا ہے، انہی گلیوں میں چل چل کر جہاں چلتی رہی زینب، انہی گلیوں میں چل چل کر جہاں چلتی رہی زینب، نشاں زینب کے قدموں کے وہ ہاتھوں سے مٹاتا ہے، کوئی غیبت میں بیٹھا خون کے آنسو بہاتا ہے، نہیں تھمتے ہیں اس کی آنکھ سے آنسو کسی صورت، نہیں تھمتے ہیں اس کی آنکھ سے آنسو کسی صورت، اسے بے شیر کا جب مسکرانا یاد آتا ہے، اسے بے شیر کا جب مسکرانا یاد آتا ہے، کوئی غیبت میں بیٹھا خون کے آنسو بہاتا ہے، پدر کی گود کی خاطر سکینہ جب بھی روتی ہے، پدر کی گود کی خاطر سکینہ جب بھی روتی ہے، وہ لوری باپ کے لہجے میں بیٹی کو سناتا ہے، وہ لوری باپ کے لہجے میں بیٹی کو سناتا ہے، خیال آتا ہے جب بھی پردے زینب کا مہدی کو، خیال آتا ہے جب بھی پردے زینب کا مہدی کو، کبھی تلوار پر وہ ہاتھ رکھتا ہے ہٹاتا ہے، کوئی غیبت میں بیٹھا خون کے آنسو بہاتا ہے، صلوات
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Sayyid Shabbir Kirmani, respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Surah Al-Fatiha is requested for the Isala Sawab of Marhumeen listed on the screen, and for all Marhumeen, Al-Fatiha. Bismillah. Ayama Yujib is requested for the names listed on the screen and for all those in need here and elsewhere. Let us recite together. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibul mutarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. Amma yujibul mutarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. Amma yujibul mutarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. عَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ عَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. We're pleased to share the upcoming program scheduled for the first week of Sha'ban with our guest speaker Sayyid Asad Jafri. During Sayyid Asad Jafri's visit, there will be various programs held for the entire community. These include a youth beach event on Friday, March 4th from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Mary McLeod Bethune Beach Park. The event is for youths aged 15 to 30. To RSVP, please message 407-421-2980 by March 2nd. A special 2-day course for adults titled Renew the Self. Classes will be held on Saturday, March 5th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. and on Sunday, March 6th from 2:30 to 5:30 p.m. Registration is required by March 2nd. We are pleased to offer childcare services for children ages 4 to 10 years, which will be available on both days for the course. Parents who wish to register for the course can now indicate on the registration form if you'd like to enroll your children for this service. There is a minimal charge of $5 per child per session, but it includes lunch on Saturday and snacks on Sunday. To register, please go to the link on the screen, www.tinyurl.com/renewtheself, or check this week's newsletter. We're also mentioning that there are fewer spots available now, so requesting people to kind of get on as soon as possible, inshallah. Sayyid Asad will also be delivering a lecture series during the 3 Shaban Khushali nights on the topic of the power of resistance. Program details will be shared in the weekly and announced during regular programs. We look forward to welcoming Sayyid Asad and encourage everyone to take advantage of the programs during his visit here in Orlando. On Saturday, March 12th, ladies will have a 15 Shaban Awal Se Akhir celebration with the theme Wilaya to Hujjah. The program will start at 2:45 p.m. and will end at 5 p.m. Watch this space for more details. Please also note, tonight Niyaz will be served for takeaway after the program, inshallah. At this time, I would like to invite Sayyid Shabbir to recite tonight's majlis with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صل على
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ونعم المولى ونعم النصير والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على الرسول المسدد المصطفى الأمجد المحمود الأحمد الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد وآل أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل وقل رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتاب الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى. صدق الله العلي العظيم. زينوا مجالسكم بالصلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على. My respected elders, brothers and sisters in Iman here in Florida, across the globe, wherever you're hearing my voice, Salamun alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Question: who was the shield of Islam When we come to the history of Islam, as we've been discussing in subsequent nights as well, you'll recall that their story of Islam does not necessarily begin from that moment where Rasulullah announced his prophethood at the age of 40, outwardly. Rather, there are certain people who well before Islam was on the radar or on the lips of people must be credited with Islam and bringing Islam and laying the foundation for Islam. Verily, we mentioned in the Thursday night programs as well, as there was people that when Rasulullah emerged and he made the announcement of prophethood, that even well before that moment when he announced at the age of 40 his prophethood, he said there were certain people who were believers, who had even passed away before. You will remember the examples of the people that I gave, the king of Yemen and others. Therefore, when we come to the story of Islam, there are certain people, even before the announcement of prophethood during the lifetime of Rasulullah and perhaps even before, were laying the foundation of Islam. One of those people you and I are here to commemorate tonight, that is Hazrat Abu Talib, the father of Amir al-Mu'mineen. An individual who has done a huge debt to all of humanity at large, not only Muslims, but beyond that. And we'll look at that tonight. How this individual protected Rasulullah in the most difficult of circumstances. How this individual laid the foundation for Islam to be practiced as you and I are practicing it today. How he protected not only Rasulullah, but he also protected all of those people who are in the vicinity of Rasulullah. Through every moment in time, you will find that the shield of Islam at every moment in time was Abu Talib. And not only Abu Talib by himself, even after Abu Talib left this world physically, he made sure that he left behind shields on this planet in terms of his progeny, in terms of his sons, in terms of his children, in terms of his offspring. Remember one thing, no one has given more blood in Karbala than the progeny of Abu Talib. Abu Talib, in his life and in his death thereafter, he protected Islam at every moment in time. Therefore, in the brief moments that we have together, I want to look at what is the qarz, the ihsan of Abu Talib on you and I as followers of Islam and Ahlul Bayt. Number one, what was the life of Abu Talib in the early days? What was his name, some of the particularities with respect to that? Who were his children, his sons, his daughters? Why are they significant? At the third level, what was the life of Abu Talib before Islam that gives us some insight into what was the Iman of Abu Talib? What were some of those things in terms of establishing social justice that Abu Talib had implemented at that time? At the next level, we'll look at what were the sacrifices of Abu Talib through thick and thin. How was he with Rasulullah? How did he protect Rasulullah in the most difficult and dire of times? And finally, we will conclude with the musibah and the commemoration of the martyrdom of Abu Talib. Wherever you are, here in Florida, across the globe, wherever you're hearing my voice, from the bottom of your heart, send a salawat on Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. At the first level, when we come to Hazrat Abu Talib, according to historians, of course, Abu Talib was his kunya. Based on the name of his eldest son, he was called Abu Talib. But according to historians, the ulama say Abu Talib's original name was, there were two names that are given. One which you may have heard of, one which you may have not have heard of. One name that is given according to the ulama as in terms of Abu Talib's real name is Abd Manaf. Abd Manaf. Like his grandfather. As you know, we went through the whole line of the Prophet's ancestors. We said Qusay and Abdul Manaf and Hashim and Abdul Muttalib and the likes, up to Abdullah and Rasulullah's ancestors. Abdul Muttalib is the father of him. Abdul Muttalib's own grandfather was Abdul Manaf. After Abdul Manaf, he named Abu Talib, who later became Abu Talib. That's the first name. The second name is Imran, which you may have heard of. Imran, and many people also on this basis, so we have traditions that say, on this basis, there is the Zahiri meaning and the Batini meaning of Surah Al Imran. Imran, as you know, Musa alayhi salam's father in the Bible is named Amram. In the Islamic tradition is known as Imran. Similarly, this is one interpretation. The ta'wil of the verse, some scholars say, is Ali Imran referring to Abu Talib. Now, there are scholars who refute this, that this is not as strong. His name was Abdul Manaf. But I want to make sure that this is present in front of you. Who are the children of this illustrious man? The narration said that, of course, his eldest son was Talib. Abu Talib comes from that. His name was Talib. Then you had the likes of Aqil. Then you had Ja'far. Then you had Ali. These were his sons, who are very, very renowned, and they were supporting Islam throughout. I will remind you very quickly of Ja'far al-Tayyar. Ja'far, the son, is the one who did so much and he sacrificed so much for Islam. Ja'far had the two sons, one by the name of Abdullah ibn Ja'far al-Tayyar, who Bibi Zainab married, and the other was named Muhammad ibn Ja'far al-Tayyar, who Bibi Kulthum married, according to the narrations. This individual is the one, Ja'far al-Tayyar, the son of Abu Talib, who Rasulullah sent the delegation of Muslims from the area of Mecca towards Abyssinia to Najashi for them to get asylum at that point in time. And they went under the guidance of Ja'far al-Tayyar. And I remind you that when he returned at that point in time, from one side was Ja'far al-Tayyar returning, from the other side was Ali returning after having conquered Khaybar. And Rasulullah said the famous statement that I do not know what I should be more happy for. Should I be more happy for Ali bringing victory from Khaybar, or should I be more happy for Ja'far al-Tayyar returning? And according to the narrations, according to the rules, because Ja'far al-Tayyar was not part of the battle and he came slightly afterwards, he did not have any right on the Baytul Mal. That is the victory, that was the wealth that came from the victory at Khaybar. But he says to him, can I give you something, O Ja'far al-Tayyar, that is better or equal, if not better, than all of the wealth of Khaybar? He says, Ya Rasulullah, please give it to me. What is it? He says, I will give you the namaz of Ja'far al-Tayyar, that prayer. This, the barakah of it will be equal, if not more, to all of the wealth of that. That's why we still recite it till this day. This Ja'far al-Tayyar is the same one who in the battle of Mu'tah, his hands were severed. And Rasulullah said, Ja'far al-Tayyar flies in the heavens with wings. In fact, the narration says, there's a moment in time where Rasulullah is sitting in the masjid with his companions, and the companions are there, and Rasulullah says, Wa alaykum as-salam. They said, Ya Rasulullah. They look left, they look right. They said, Ya Rasulullah, we didn't see anyone to which you are responding on salams. He said, at this moment in time, the angels were moving and about with Ja'far al-Tayyar. I was returning his response of salam. This position of the progeny of Abu Talib, let alone Abu Talib, who will come to in another moment. The daughters have been mentioned. They have been mentioned that there are 7 children in total of Abu Talib, 4 sons, 3 daughters. One daughter I want to highlight in particular, who was the sister of Imam Ali, by the name of Hani. Hani lived in Mecca. Her house was right next to the Kaaba. In fact, tomorrow night when we celebrate and commemorate Mi'raj happened from the house of Hani. Hani, Rasulullah was a guest in the house of Hani, the sister of Amir al-Mu'mineen, on the night of Mi'raj. At that point in time, and in the morning he said the narration that of Mi'raj at that point in time. So these people, at every moment you will find, the defenders of Rasulullah throughout the message of the Prophet, in the earliest days was Abu Talib himself directly, and after Abu Talib right away it was his progeny. At the first level. At the next level, what I want to look at very quickly with you is, what was the life of Abu Talib before Islam? Because this will answer many of the issues that follow down the line. Many people begin to say, oh, Abu Talib, did he have Iman or not? Did he bring Iman or not? Let's come and let's answer these things to make it clear. If you remember some of the lectures we've been discussing on Thursday nights in terms of the history of Islam and the history of the Prophet, you will know that in that region in Mecca, there were a few religions at that point in time. There were the Abrahamic faiths, there was Judaism, there was Christianity, there was also idolatry. But amongst those groups of people, there was also a group called the Hunafa. The majority were idolaters, but there was a group called the Hunafa. The Hunafa were those who were following from the line of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim was a Hanif, although he was a Muslim, but the Sharia in our form was not there at that time necessarily. So he was a Hanif. Hanif were those people who were Mawahid, they were monotheists in that era and that time. Abu Talib, at the bare minimum, he is this. But to discuss and say if Abu Talib was a Muslim or not, this is in fact a disrespect of Abu Talib. Abu Talib is above Iman. But we'll come to that in a moment. Abu Talib, and we'll come to this for a moment. What was his life before? I want to explain. Abdul Muttalib is the one who has the keys to the Kaaba. He is the chieftain of Mecca. Very clear. His son, when he's about to depart this world, the narration says there's a moment in time where he is doing tawaf around the Kaaba. His Abdul Muttalib was also Hanif. He's doing tawaf around the Kaaba. He falls to the ground. When he falls to the ground, he's very elderly, the narration say at this point in time. It's towards the end of his life. He says, call for me my son. As you know, he had several sons. At that point in time, one son comes. He says, no, call for me Abu Talib. At that point in time, he says, this is the one. Abu Talib, although he was not the wealthiest of the brothers, there were 5 brothers who were at least older than Abu Talib, and 5 of them were wealthier than Abu Talib. But he was not the wealthiest, he was not the oldest. But he knew, Abdul Muttalib knew this is the one who's going to carry the lines. So the entrustment of the keys of the Kaaba went to Abu Talib. Abu Talib became the chief of Mecca. At that point in time, before the announcement of prophethood, there was a battle called Harb al-Fajjar. Harb meaning battle or war. Fajjar is sacrilegious. Harb al-Fajjar, what happened here? The Quraysh and the Hawazin, these two groups began to fight one another. As you know, there used to be many frivolous wars at that time between tribes and Qaba'il. There was a mela, or what is called a festival, that used to happen at Aqab. When this used to happen, at this point in time, in Arabia at that time, you needed to make sure you gave protection to a caravan. If you didn't give protection, it would be robbed by highway bandits. So Quraysh was entrusted with this caravan and its protection. Hawazin got upset. They said, well, hold on a second. Why were we not entrusted? And a skirmish ensued between these two groups, the Quraysh and the Hawazin. When this ensued, and this lasted several years. Every year they would go and fight for a few days. And this continued year after year. So what used to happen was, Quraysh is the family of Rasulullah, as you know. And within that is Bani Hashim and the likes. So they would say, Abu Talib, come with us. So Abu Talib would go. He never picked up an arrow, by the way, at that point. He never fought in these battles because they were frivolous battles. He joined in. But they began to notice something, the Quraysh. They said, every time Abu Talib comes with us, we win. We win that day the battle. That day we win the battle. You know, sometimes I know some friends, and many of you may know, you watch your favorite sports team. I know people like this. They say they never watch the Lakers play. They are diehard fans. They never watch the Knicks play. They are diehard fans. They say, every time I watch the game, my team loses, so I won't watch it. I'll turn off the TV. So you make these connections. Similarly, the Quraysh said, hold on, every time Abu Talib is with us, we win the battle. He said, okay, Abu Talib, come with us, because you are a good luck charm, so to speak. You have to come with us. Abu Talib said, I'm not busy, I have other things to do. I don't have time. I'm kind of busy. I'm not interested. He said, no, you have to come. Every time you come, we win. Then Abu Talib gives the statement which I want you to remember. Abu Talib is on the record and saying, with respect to Harb al-Fajjar, he said, I will go with you on the condition that none of you does zulm on anyone else, number one. Number two, you do not do buhtan on anyone else. Abu Talib is telling you and I Sharia before the Sharia has come. Do not do zulm on anyone else. Do not do buhtan on anyone. You know buhtan, slander, allegations that are not true. Do not do it. Quran says buhtanun azima. It's one of the great sins to do slander. Ghiba is, let alone, ghiba is a huge sin in of itself. Backbiting, even if it's true, ghiba is a guna. Imagine buhtan, slander, an allegation which is not even true. He says, don't do this. He says, number three, don't do qata ar-rahim. Abu Talib is telling the Sharia before the Sharia is there. He's saying, don't do qata ar-rahim. If you agree to these conditions, then and only then I will go with you. They said, Abu Talib, we agree. Abu Talib is telling his Imam before, and then he went to the battle and he was there in the presence at that point in time. Abu Talib, the chieftain of Mecca, is telling people about principle throughout times. Number one. Number two, before Islam has come forward, apparently, there was a moment in time where a heavy rain had happened in Mecca. When heavy rain had happened in Mecca, as you know, many of you are those who have done Hajj, and may Allah grant all of us Hajj inshallah. At that point in time, there are the mountains that are surrounding the Kaaba. When it rains heavily, the water floods towards the Kaaba. So one day the rain accumulated in such a quantity that the Kaaba itself, it began to disintegrate, as we would say. It began to collapse. The foundation of it began to collapse. As you know, the Kaaba has been rebuilt numerous times historically. So this happened at that point in time. Now keep this point in mind. The Arabs at that time, they had no concept of halal and haram in terms of rizq at all. As in sustenance, the income that you get it through highway robbery, you get it whatever way, whatever you get it, doesn't matter. At that point in time, they said, we must reconstruct the Kaaba. Abu Talib said, yes, we must reconstruct the Kaaba. So when the foundation needed to be rebuilt, they all came to try to rebuild the foundation of the Kaaba, but at that point in time, the narration says a serpent or a snake emerged from the foundation. They all jumped back. Of course, they got scared at that point in time. They said, what's the matter? First the Kaaba has been broken, now we have to rebuild it, but when we go to rebuild it, the serpent emerges, and we can't do that. Abu Talib says, we're going to do something. He says, what is it? They said, what is it? Abu Talib, the chief of Mecca, he says, we are only going to make sure that we use halal rizq to build this house of God. Halal rizq. They said, what do you mean halal rizq? What is halal rizq? What are you talking about? Halal sustenance. Abu Talib began to ask each one in private, of course, what is your form of income? How did you collect this income? How did you get this money that you are using to rebuild the Kaaba? He said, this is halal, this is haram, this is halal, this is haram, this is acceptable. If someone was robbing or doing highway robbery, he says, this is not acceptable. If someone was maybe doing loan sharking, usury, this is not acceptable. He says, if you have worked hard for this honestly, accepted, very good. So he made two piles, not accepted and accepted, halal and haram. He said, only that which is halal income will be used to build this house. At that point in time, as soon as they started using the income that was halal, the narration says a bird, a white bird emerged and swooped away that serpent that was surrounding the Kaaba and took it away. And they built the Kaaba in that way. Second time where Abu Talib showed his Iman without ever stating it per se. Abu Talib's Iman is coming forth. The third level, which is still used till this day, believe it or not. There was a man by the name of Amr. This individual was somebody who was killed in Mecca at that time. When he was killed, according to the narrations at that point in time, Amr bin Alqama, this individual, when he was killed, at that point in time, his tribesmen said, look, they came to Abu Talib, they said, look, here's the situation. Our tribesman has been killed, and we know who killed him. Abu Talib said, okay, the rule of the land, the law of the land is, you have to bring a witness. Who's your witness? He says, we don't have any witness. But we have this data point, that data point, that data point. We have evidence. And the evidence is crystal clear that this person did it. You know, in our world, you have a jury. In the United States, you have the right to a jury. The jury is supposed to be members of your peer group. They are a jury of your peers. And even though there may not have been an eyewitness, by the way, if you know modern psychology, eyewitnesses are anything but eyewitnesses because we reconstruct our memory. Our memories are not static, they're dynamic. We make errors in the placement of the memory, the retrieval of the memory at every moment in time. And this, we can talk about this another time. Having said all of this, you are entitled to a jury of your peers. And the jury of the peers look at the evidence and say, based on this, we believe this person is guilty or not guilty. At that point in time, Abu Talib said, and it was not just soft evidence, it was hard evidence that was quite evident. The people of the tribe were convinced, Abu Talib was convinced, and everyone around was convinced. It was just that nobody had seen it with their eyes. Abu Talib said, very well, it seems like a convincing argument. You're convinced, I'm convinced, we're all convinced. Now here's the condition. You have to swear 50 times that this man did this act. Swear 50 times. This is still in the Sharia of all Muslims, by the way. If the evidence is overwhelming and you do this swearing. By the way, the idea or the concept was the niyat that you are to be honest at every moment in time. But if after one time or two times, you would not lie to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to God 50 times in a row. And then and only then that conclusion comes forward. Abu Talib's sunnah is still used till this day in that regard. Abu Talib is saying that justice is what must prevail in this society and this land. This was Abu Talib before Islam, Badahir. After Islam, it's quite evident. Abu Talib is that one who is looking after Rasulullah at every moment in time. Abdul Muttalib, as you know, when Rasulullah came into this world, his father had passed away beforehand. When his father had passed away beforehand, he was in the custody of the Bedouins outside of the city for quite some time. His mother was responsible for this in the early part, but he was also living outside of the city, which was common practice. Then Abdul Muttalib, his grandfather, looks after him. When Abdul Muttalib leaves this world, he entrusts Muhammad, Rasulullah, to Abu Talib. Abu Talib is looking after him. There comes a moment in time when they are to go for a business trip. When they are to go for a business trip, according to the narrations, Rasulullah is a teenager roughly. And when they go at that point in time, the very famous narration where he meets Bahira, who is this monk, and he says that you are all invited to dinner because he saw the signs. He said, you are all invited to dinner at my place. At that point in time, when they came, he says, has everyone come? He said, yes, everyone is here. He said, are you sure? Because the signs were not there at that point in time. He said, no, there's one person who's looking after the camels and the likes. And that was Rasulullah, and he called him. At that point in time, when he saw the signs, I'm condensing the whole waqia, I don't have time. He told Abu Talib, he says, look after this one, after your nephew. Of course, Abu Talib knows, but he says, look after him, because the people will be thirsty for his blood. This was Abu Talib looking after him at every moment in time, and that trip as well, and then they returned. When they returned, there's another moment that I want to mention to you, and what is that? That is when Rasulullah comes to Abu Talib. Now, when he has begun to propagate his message, he says, my uncle, am I not part of Quraysh? He said, yes. Of course you are, my nephew. So, am I not part of Banu Hashim? He said, yes. Of course you are. He says, you're the heart of it. He says, then why do they treat me like this? So what happened? He says, Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab and the likes, and Abu Sufyan, these guys, they made a plot. What did they do? They took the bones of a camel, the bloodied bones, and they threw it on Rasulullah. As you know, they would do these things to Rasulullah. They would throw at times they would throw the intestine of an animal. At that point in time, Rasulullah says this to Abu Talib. Abu Talib says, very well, is this right? He says, stay here. He calls Hamza. As you know, Hamza was the youngest sibling, but the bravest. He was the lion. He was the youngest son of Abdul Muttalib. He says, Hamza, come. He said, let's go. He said, where are they? They said, right in the vicinity of the Kaaba. They went right in the vicinity of the Kaaba. There's Abu Sufyan and other people who were there. He says, Abu Talib, what's the meaning of this? He says, you treat my nephew like this? He says, none of you are to move. I said, what do you mean? He said, if any of you move, I'll have your heads. He says, what happened? He called Hamza. He says, Hamza, take these. What did he have? He had bones of camels, the same way. And he said, Hamza, brush each of their mustaches with the blood of the camel from the bones. And he did that to each one. They could not move. He said, look, if any of you disrespect my nephew like this once again, while I am alive, you'll have me to deal with. Abu Talib was the one who was protecting Rasulullah at every moment in time. And people still ask, what is the proof of the Iman of Abu Talib? Let's come to it. The Ahlul Bayt were asked after this, was he a believer or not? They asked Amir al-Mu'mineen at one point in time, they said, Ya Ali, Abuka finnar, your father is in the hellfire. Because they used to say this about Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen looks back and he smiles, Wa ana qasimul jannati wan nar. And I am the one who divides between heaven and hell. That he was saying that don't worry about my father, worry about your fathers. Because my father is on the record looking after Rasulullah at every moment in time, because Rasulullah has a tradition, a hadith that is accepted by all Muslims, which is what? That me and the one who is the kafil of an orphan will be in Jannah like this. And he gestured with his two fingers. The one who looks after an orphan, Rasulullah says, the one who looks after an orphan and me and I, Rasulullah, will be in Jannah like this, like the two fingers. So the Rasulullah saying an ordinary kafil, an ordinary caretaker of an orphan will be in Jannah with Rasul like this. But the one who is the kafil of Rahmatan lil Alameen will not be in Jannah? What logic is this? What world is this? There's a moment in time where they ask the Ahlul Bayt with respect to this. They say to Imam Sajjad, was Abu Talib a believer? He says, you ask, was Abu Talib a believer or not? He says, I'll give you the logic. You want the logic? After Islam came, the women who brought Islam were not allowed to remain with husbands who had not brought Islam. If Fatima bint Asad is on the record as having brought Islam, show me one place where Rasulullah said, Fatima bint Asad, my aunt, you cannot stay with your husband Abu Talib. Show me one place. You won't find it. Further than this, on the sixth Imam's time, they asked the sixth Imam, they said, Yabna Rasulullah, was Abu Talib a believer or not? What's the proof? What's the evidence? He says, Abu Talib was the foremost of the believers, the foremost of the believers. He says, what's the dalil, what's the evidence? The diwan of Abu Talib, the poetry of Abu Talib. Abu Talib is the first one to write a naat in honor of Rasulullah. He says in his poetry that this Muhammad is like the Musa, the prophet. And he continues in a long qasida. Imam as-Sadiq is saying, further than this, furthermore, Mutawakkil during the time of the 10th Imam, Imam al-Hadi. He says, Mutawakkil says, Yabna Rasulullah, as you know, these Abbasid tyrants, they would try to test the Imams. He says, Yabna Rasulullah, is there a place between heaven and hell? He says, this is from the knowledge of Allah. As you know, there's a chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-A'raf. This is the one which Edgar Allan Poe, the poet, he was inspired by and he wrote his longest poem. They say the interesting part of Al-Araf is the argument is perhaps this is a place between heaven and hell, an intermediate point. So he says, Mutawakkil says to Imam Hadi, is there a place between heaven and hell? He says this is from one of the secrets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at the enemy knew who they were talking to. He says, I want you to tell me from the secrets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, I know you have access, tell me, what is it? He said, okay, what's your question? Get to the point. What are you trying to say? He says, we've heard that Abu Talib will be in a place between heaven and hell. He will not be in heaven and he will not be in hell. Mutawakkil is saying this to Imam Hadi, to the 10th Imam. He's saying that he will not be able to go to Jannah because he did not bring Iman. This is the argument that they come forward with. And he will not be able to burn in hell because he is the one who looked after Rasulullah. So what's the answer? Imam said, Abu Talib, you think Abu Talib will be punished because of this? You have the whole plot twisted. You have the whole narrative wrong. He said, Abu Talib will be the foremost from Jannah. Abu Talib is the one who brought Iman perhaps before any of the others. And he goes into a long dialogue which I wish I had time to discuss on. Furthermore, let's come to the riwayah in Bukhari. The riwayah in Bukhari with respect to what the argumentation is for why Abu Talib, they say Abu Talib did not bring Iman, is what? They say that Rasulullah on his deathbed, he said, so at the deathbed of Abu Talib, Rasulullah comes to Abu Talib while Abu Talib is about to leave this world, and he says something in his ear. And he says, what did he say? He said, my uncle, say the kalma, say the shahada. And he didn't. This is what the narration is in Bukhari. Who are the ravis? Who are the people who are the narrators of this? According to different traditions. Abdullah ibn Abbas. Abdullah ibn Abbas is considered to be one of the narrators. What's the problem of this? According to the narrations, Abu Talib was, when Rasulullah was 50, Abu Talib departed this world. If you know the history of Islam, 13 years in Mecca, 10 years in Medina. So Abu Talib is how old? It's in the Meccan period. Keep all of this in mind. Abdullah ibn Abbas, the first Ravi, according to the historians, the first narrator of this would be how old when Abu Talib died? 2 years old. Can someone 2 years old narrate what they heard in the ear between Rasulullah and Abu Talib? Number one. Number two, Abdullah ibn Umar. This was a gathering of chieftains. These were the gathering when Abu Talib was departing. Kids were not allowed. These were the chiefs of Mecca who were gathered there. Abdullah ibn Umar would be there. He wouldn't even be on the list. Number three, and this is the one that people say is the most credible. Who is the one who narrated this hadith? Abu Huraira. They say Abu Huraira is the one. Now I just told you when did Abu Talib die? Do you know when Abu Huraira brought Iman? According to historians, Abu Huraira brought Iman in the 7th year of Hijrah, 7 years after Hijrah. He was not even a Muslim when this incident happened. You're accepting his word? But subhanallah, the aql of the Muslim, the logic of the Muslim, when they want to hear something, they are able to hear the secret in the ear of Rasulullah. That Rasulullah says in the ear of Abu Talib. As in a secret. Baba, if someone comes and says something in my ear, it's a secret. Or if I say something in someone's ear, that's a secret. Obviously, I'm saying it because perhaps I don't want other people to hear. So this secret, apparently Abu Huraira and others were able to hear this secret in their ear. I don't know how. But subhanallah, when the Muslim, when they want to hear something, they hear the secret between Rasulullah and Abu Talib in the ear. And when they don't want to hear something, Abu Talib's son, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Rasulullah lifts him on his hands and he says, Man kuntu mawla, fahada aliyun mawla. They all forget that? They didn't hear that? They didn't see that? How many companions said, oh, we didn't hear, we didn't see? 124,000 people were there. Subhanallah, the world forgets. What was the animosity? What was the issue? What was the problem the world had with Abu Talib? And if you read the pages of history, it was one and only one. And perhaps it's the poet that brings all of these things together. What was it? What was their problem with Abu Talib? When you look at the history, you will find out what was the problem. When you look at the poetry, when you look at what Abu Sufyan said, Abu Sufyan who brought Islam in the most dire, he only brought Islam to save his life because he was from the Tulaqa. When Fath Makkah happened, according to the traditions, Rasulullah said, Aman is for the one who goes in the house of Abu Sufyan. Abu Sufyan did not bring Islam from sincerity of his heart. He brought it because of circumstances. That's why they were called Tulaqa. That's why Sayyidah Zainab said that Yabnat Tulaqa, when she looked at Yazid, said the Tulaqa were not supposed to be Khulafa. How did you get in that seat? Because there were questions around why they accepted Islam. This was the circumstance, this was in the environment. That's why Abu Sufyan said that this was all a game. That's why Yazid after Karbala, he said, Laibat Hashim bil mulk, fala khabaran wala ja'a nazal. He said, this Hashim, Banu Hashim, they just played with the land. They just played with the mulk. There was no khabar, there was no wahi, there was no news. He clearly declared his kufr. So what was the problem with Abu Talib? What was the issue with Abu Talib? What was their problem with Abu Talib? The poet encapsulates this in 2 verses of poetry. He says, Bas is khata pe tujhe is jahan ne choda hai, Abu Talib. Bas is khata pe तुझे इस जहां ने छोड़ा है कि तेरे लाल ने इनके बुतों को तोड़ा है। बस इस खता पे तुझे इस जहां ने छोड़ा है कि तेरे लाल ने इनके बुतों को तोड़ा है। Ali ibn Abi Talib is the one who stood on the shoulders of Rasulullah and broke the idols that they worshipped. They couldn't tolerate that. Not only the physical idols, Ali broke the ideological idols through his words, through his actions at every moment in time. Karbala was there trying to take revenge on Ali and Ali's father Abu Talib. Read the pages of history. Abu Talib is the one who looked after Rasulullah, and his progeny are the ones who looked after Islam afterwards. But how did this world repay the debt of Abu Talib? Come with me to Karbala and come with me to Medina. Abu Talib is buried in Jannatul Mu'alla. Jannatul Mu'alla, the narrations say, the one who is buried in Jannatul Mu'alla, according to Islam, ask the Muslim world, there is no hisab kitab for the one who is buried in Jannatul Mu'alla. So go move, Abu Talib then. Why this contradiction? Why this animosity to the father of Ali ibn Abi Talib? Whereas you accept Abu Sufyan, you accept Muawiyah, you accept those people, no problem, they're Muslims. There's a double standard here that we need to be honest about. We pray Allah guides the people. But what happened at moment in time, Abu Talib is leaving from this world. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he comes to Rasulullah, he says, Ya Rasulullah, my father is departing from this world. At that point in time, Rasulullah begins to cry. As you know, Shabbir Abi Talib, the struggles Abu Talib had gone through to protect his nephew at every moment in time. At that point in time, the narrations say that Amir al-Mu'mineen, he gave the ghusl. Rasulullah told him, give the ghusl, give the kafan. And Rasulullah went with the janaza of Abu Talib. And Amir al-Mu'mineen did the namaz janaza. Why? Because it is recommended more that the son do the namaz janaza of the father. Amir al-Mu'mineen did it. Did Rasulullah stop Imam Ali from doing the ghusl, the kafan, the janazah? He participated in it himself. Who's the one who's reciting the nikah of Rasulullah? Who are these people? Who is this individual, Abu Talib, who's leaving the world? Nonetheless, leaving all of these things aside, Abu Talib, he leaves this world. At every moment in time when we come to Karbala, you will find it's the progeny of Abu Talib. It's the sons of Ali ibn Abi Talib who are there, who are at the forefront. Abbas, the likes of Ali Akbar, the likes of Qasim, the likes of these shuhada. The shield of Islam is Abu Talib, and the shields that he left behind are Abbas and Qasim and Ali Akbar and Aun and Muhammad. There's a moment in time where Qasim ibn al-Hasan, he is in the grounds of Karbala, and Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he comes, the remnants of the children of Abu Talib are here. And Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he gets to the body of his nephew al-Qasim. And what does he see? He sees the pieces of al-Qasim scattered on the ground. And he begins to pick up the pieces as if he is saying, my nephew Qasim, forgive me for being late to coming to your body, that they have done this to your body. The other narrations say that when Imam Hussein alayhi salam, there's a moment in time when his own son Ali Akbar goes to the battlefield. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he sees his son after he has been martyred, and he says, Ya bunayya, ala dunya ba'daka al-afa. He says, oh my son, after you on this world is dust. There is no value in this world. How did Imam see this child of his son Ali al-Akbar? Furthermore, there's a moment in time where Abbas, Imam, comes to the body of Abbas. Do you know what happened to Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas? If Abu Talib was the shield of Rasulullah, you know that Abbas was the shield of Imam al-Hussein in Karbala. Do you know? They say Ayatullah Mahdi Baharul Ulum, 300 years ago, he was the Marja' Azam. He was the Marja' Azam. Do you know what happened? They went for the ziyarah in the shrine of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. They went to the basement with some zawar 300 years ago. They said, they looked at the grave of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, and they looked at Sayyid Mahdi. They said, Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum, you are the Marja' Azam of our time. He said, yes. He says, look at this grave. Can we ask you a question? He said, yes, what's the question? The Shia, who are the Zawar, they looked at Sayyid Mahdi. They said, Sayyid Mahdi, we had heard that Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas was very tall. He said, yes. He says, then can you answer the question, why is his grave so small? Sayyid Mahdi began to beat himself. He began to cry. He said, Abbas was very tall, but the enemy cut him into so many pieces. This is all that we have left of Abbas. This is what the enemies did to the progeny of Abu Talib in Karbala. Magar azadaro do jumle sun lijiye. Ye Abbas the, ye Ali Akbar the, ye Qasim the, ye Ono Muhammad the. Magar Sham Ghariba mein aiye. Ek 4 साला मासूम सकीना है, नजफ का रुख करती हैं और कहती हैं, ऐ अली इब्न अबी तालिब, ऐ कुल के मुश्किल कुशा, मदद के लिए आइए, मगर कोई मदद करने वाला नहीं। ये है अबू तालिब की नस्ल। और ये जुमले ये लोग क्या कर रहे हैं उनके साथ। एक मरहला ये भी आया कि इमाम सज्जाद जब वो अलकमा के पास आते हैं 40 को, सीधा रुख किया। एक रिवायत मिलती है कि हजरत अब्बास के लाशे के पास आए और कहा, है कमर बनी हाशिम, क्या बताऊं कि मैंने क्या देखा शाम में और क्या कह रहे थे हमसे। ज़ैनब थी, बाजार था, अशकिया थे।
على لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله، صلى الله عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، صلى الله عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، صلى الله عليك يا حسن المجتبى. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين، خصوصا سيدي ومولاي أبو الفضل العباس ابن أمير المؤمنين وأبو طالب ابن عبد المطلب. Ya Allah, we ask you to bless this holy gathering. Ya Allah, we ask you to allow us to learn from the life of Abu Talib. Ya Allah, we ask you to bless all the mu'mineen here who are listening wherever they may be. Ya Allah, alleviate the suffering in this world. Alleviate those who are suffering from COVID or otherwise their illness. Ya Allah, alleviate the suffering and the poverty that may be existing. If anyone's having a difficulty in their finances, Ya Allah, alleviate their difficulty. And Ya Allah, bless all the believers and bless all those who serve in terms of their words, their actions, their wealth, whatever way, before, during and after the program. And Ya Allah, hasten the reappearance of Imam Sahib al-Asr al-Zaman and allow us to be amongst his companions when he returns. Ma'tam Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. Hayy ala khairil amal, hayy ala khairil amal, hayy ala khairil amal. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. ہو گیا یتیم آج مرتضی و محمدا و مصیبتا و محمدا و مصیبتا. ہو گئے یتیم آج مرتضی و محمدا و مصیبتا و محمدا و مصیبتا. ہو گئے یتیم آج مرتضی. حضرت عمران جگ سے چل بسے شیعوں کے گھروں میں آج ہے بکا. روتے ہیں نبی غم میں ہے علی. ہو گئے یتیم آج مرتضی و محمدا و مصیبتا و محمدا. ہو گئے یتیم آج مرتضی. بے سہارا ہے آج مصطفیٰ بے پدر ہوئے آج مرتضی. سایہ ان کے سر سے آج ہے اتا. ہو گئے یتیم آج مرتضی. ومحمدا ومصیبتا ہو گئے یتیم آج مرتضیٰ دین حق کو تھا جس سے آسرا جس کے دم سے تا سب کو حوصلہ چور کر چلے سب کو باوفا ہو گئے یتیم آج مرتضیٰ ومحمدا ومصیبتا ہو گئے یتیم آج مرتضیٰ دین کی پناہ آج چل بسا دین کا ستون آج گر پڑا اہل آسماں کرتے ہیں بکا ہو گئے یتیم آج مرتضیٰ ومحمدا ومصیبتا ومحمدا ہو گئے یتیم آج مرتضیٰ جس کا بیت ہو مرکز ایمان اس کو کہ جہاں ہائے بے ایمان ہائے بھلا دیا ان کے سب احسان ہو گئے یتیم ومحمدا ومصیبتا ومحمدا ومصیبتا ہو گئے یتیم آج مرتضیٰ حق سے ہم کرے لوگو یہ دعا جلد ہو تعمیر روضہ آپ کا آ کے ہم کرے گریہ و بکا ہو گئے یتیم آج مرتضیٰ ومحمدا ومصیبتا ومحمدا ومصیبتا ہو گئے یتیم آج مرتضیٰ ومحمدا ومصیبتا ہو گئے یتیم آج مرتضیٰ زیارت
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بكيت وبكي الليل والنهار وناجعل الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين السلام عليك أئمة المسلمين من ذرية الحسين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي السلام عليك إمام صاحب الزمان أجل الله تعالى فرجك وساخر الله مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وأينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توءا وتمتعه فيها طويلا